Hello and welcome to Science Talk Noon on CBC. I'm your host, Dr. Darcy Bolton. Today, we have a special guest, Dr. Nico Fragas. He is an environmental scientist from Laurentian University. Dr. Fragas, how are you today?
Good, how are you, Dr. Bolton?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for asking. So, we've recently heard that you've come up with a new book called The Definitive Truth About Global Warming. Is that true?
Yes, it is. And I have to say that the sales have been very positive, and I sense that there's a keen interest in the public and members within the scientific community to learn the truth about global warming, the facts about it, and specifically how it impacts communities around the world.
Sounds very interesting. So that leads us to our topic of discussion today, which is how global warming affects local communities. So for viewers or listeners that have not learned or don't know about global warming, could you fill them in and kind of let them know and sort of give them a little bit of information about how global warming works or what it is?
So around the Earth, there is a thin layer of gas called ozone. And what's happening with global warming is that there are holes in the ozone layer, and these holes allow for the sun's rays to pass through them more easily, and this in turn leads to the Earth heating up, the temperatures in the Earth heating up, and things such as the polar ice caps melting. So the ozone layer wasn't always this way. Before, close to even 100 years ago, it was almost completely gas, and it had very small holes in it. But since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, humans have started producing pollutants such as CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, fossil fuels. When humans burn them, this is a form of pollution.
So from your cars.
Yes, from your cars as an example. Mostly these two reasons, and these have opened up holes in the ozone layer. And normally, the ozone will be able to repair itself, but since
The holes
humans
are so big, right?
yes, the holes are very large. Since humans keep pumping pollutants into the air, this is causing additional damage, and the ozone can't repair itself fast enough.
That's not very good at all. So could you give us a little insight on how global warmings affect local communities just in North America first, just how it affects North America in general?
So in North America, it is predicted, according to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States, that water resources will dwindle by 10 to 30%. And we've already seen examples of this happening, such as the drought in California, which has led to record highs in temperatures and record lows in water resources in California. And we'll see more of the same across all of North America, from Canada on down to Mexico. And this will lead to forests being damaged and destroyed because the trees and other shrubbery that live there will not draw enough water. And when they don't draw enough water, there isn't enough food for the animals that live there. And this means that humans won't have enough food in turn, because when there are no animals, humans rely on animals as a source of food. And when there's no food, this leads to eventual starvation.
It's not good at all. So how about over on the other side of the pond, like Africa and Asia and Europe, or maybe even Australia, if you could touch on that. But as hopefully all of us already know about all the droughts that are happening in Africa, how is global warming going to affect communities more, or how has it already affected them?
So unfortunately in Africa, it's predicted that we'll see more of the same, more droughts, more epidemics of viruses such as the Ebola breakout. Unfortunately, this will be the norm instead of the rarity in the future. So in Africa, again, resources are expected to dwindle to by 30 to maybe even 45%, that low, of the little water that they already have. And again, this could lead to starvation, malnutrition, less water for all. But this also leads to an epidemic of viruses such as malaria, and malaria is carried by mosquitoes. And these mosquitoes thrive in hot, dry environments with little water, and this is going to be exactly the breeding ground that Africa will offer. Likewise, viruses such as meningitis and meningococcal, which are very infectious and can lead to death very quickly, will also breed in Africa quite a bit. And unfortunately, Africa is not in a position to combat these deadly viruses due to the fact that they have rudimentary hospitals, little vaccines, and malnutrition. And some people think that this would just be Africa's problem, but it would be the world's problem, because these viruses start off in Africa and starts off as an epidemic, but then as they get stronger, they gradually mutate. And as they mutate, they could beat the vaccines that we've developed to combat them, and it could in turn turn into a global pandemic.
How about like places like England or the most southern port in China, or even the Philippines that could end up underwater since the polar ice caps are melting, or even Miami? How is that affecting certain places like that?
So the David Suzuki Foundation predicts that in the next 75 to 100 years, Miami could be underwater if we continue at our pace. San Francisco, even the entire state of Maryland could be underwater. Cities like Venice could be completely underwater in Italy. And Australia could be partially submerged. And the Philippines, which is a very low-lying country surrounded by a body of water, could be completely submerged. And this leads to loss of habitats for animals and humans. And they cannot drink the water that's flooded because it's salted and polluted. And that means less water. And this means that there will be increasing amounts of global migration. And they could move to countries such as Canada, the United States, Germany, France, and their population could increase 20 to 25% within the next 25 to 30 years. And with so many more mouths to feed in a country and dwindling resources, this could only touch off violence, not to mention racial divides with all the types of different people living in one congested area. And then according to The Economist, if the trend of global warming continues, the global economy could lose hundreds of billions worth of money.
That's not very good. So sadly, we have to wrap this up, but in your book, you have a whole bunch of tips about how you can prevent global warming. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
All right. So if you guys want to learn more and figure out how you can prevent global warming, don't be afraid to pick up Dr. Fragis's book. It is a very good read, and you won't regret that you have read it. Thank you, Dr. Fragis, for coming to the show, and have yourself a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton, for having me.
Thank you.